parks with trails and different kind of things too, that stormwater has to do. So that was kind of that whole thing. The swivel boom that was on the skidster, right?
Right. It's
So,
a swivel broom to help sweep up debris if you need to on the roads, or say a water leak. They could probably bring it out if they need to sweep and clean it up a little bit better.
so that's just to kind of push all the debris, to one side to where we can go and get it cleaned up easier. We just don't have anything like that. Our sweepers can do some of that, but you don't want it to do it with some of the bigger debris, that we can clean it up onto the side and then get it picked up, and then the sweeper would be able to come in and clean it up. So it's just an attachment for the skidster is all. White rock is just money coming over from this year, right, or Evan? So that would be
roll over.
Yeah.
So 200,000 is our estimate of the amount that will be remaining by the end of June.
Yeah.
Just a guess.
And that's just to get that debris basin done. We're just not thinking it's going to be done June 30th. So. And then the expansion is the basin that's in front of the public works shop on Pleasant View Drive. We're taking basically a foot out of the bottom, taking all that, putting it on top, and so that we can have more capacity in that basin there. So that a lot of that work will be done in-house, but some of that stuff, that can be all going towards impact fees. So it's one of those projects that's helping a lot of area down on the west side, because we have all the basins that kind of feed down the west side, and eventually we'll be able to tie all that in right into that shop, that one right there in front of the shop. So.
Is that price a quote, or is that just you just asked? I mean, did you get a quote from somebody to excavate, or you guys get excavated?
That was with Jones's, right?
So it's an engineer's estimate if we had gone outside for all the work.
So if it's in-house,
It'll be quite a bit, yeah.
Our storm impact fees are tracked in a separate fund, so you can see the first page is stormwater utility fund, second page is storm impact fee fund. And so in there we show the current year estimated revenue, some use of fund balance, and then that money is transferred from this fund into the storm water fund to pay for the project. And we're actually getting to a point where we really need to spend some of our stormwater impact fees because of the 6-year time limit. So this project seems like the right project at the right time, so that we can make good use of money that needs to be spent. So you can see the numbers at the bottom. I forgot to mention the items that are bold face type. We're proposing to pay for those using fund balance in the sewer fund, in the storm fund. And so it totals out at $252,000 use of fund balance. We don't like to use fund balance on operations, but we feel like using it on equipment and capital projects makes sense.
So Evan, that 252 that you basically show there would be basically 13,000 less because of the number that was incorrect on the vehicle rotation. Is that right?
I think that I just mistyped it when I put it in the slide. So I think.
So the 251,950 is the accurate number. It's just up above it.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the staff report, it does show 1,500. So I think that number is good.
Yeah, it's on this paper.
So we have a pretty comfortable fund balance. In fact, this is probably our largest fund balance of any of the funds. So we're in pretty good shape.
Will you explain what is that 6-year time limit?
So when we collect impact fees anytime somebody is building a new house or building, and we have 6 years from the time of collection to spend that money on impact fee eligible projects. So it has to be spent on projects that are related to new growth, but the state law only gives us 6 years to spend it.
Okay. And if we don't, what happens?
If we don't, then we're supposed to refund it to whoever paid it. Or I think there is a provision where you can declare an emergency or not an emergency, but
So if you can make a declaration that before the 6 year runs up of exactly what project it'll be spent on and by what date, and that allows you to extend it to that project. But in this case, we have several impact fee eligible storm projects that, like for example, that basin's there and it's serving some homes that are in the city already, but everything we're going to be adding is new capacity by digging it deeper and building the walls taller. It makes it a larger basin.
And we have quite a bit of eligible projects for impact fees too. I mean, we're gonna do the same thing over at the basin at Oaklawn Park. We're gonna expand that because
It's down over.
yeah, it's kind of over the hill. Because there's some development coming above that will.
Nobody poison like.
Can't we use it for the police station if there's a storm over there?
Well, part of the reason this fund balance is so high is we've been holding off on some of the projects so that when we hear about the grant for the basin that's west of the Montessori School, this fund balance can go towards that project. Or a portion of it. It wouldn't be all of it, but a portion to expand that capacity.
Evan?
yeah.
The, in the note at the bottom here, you indicate 251,950 of fund balance proposed to be expended. The items that you have bolded don't come anywhere near 251,950. The 31, 1,500, 27,049, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the rest of that 251,950?
Let me look into that spreadsheet. Okay, so I have 800. So I have,
And what we have in bold there is about 127, 128,000.
117.5.
117.5?
so
Does
I
it
think,
include the 135.23 increase?
I think it's because up here I have the net cost of the vehicle rotation, but the 251 includes the gross cost of those vehicles. So those three vehicles, two of them are $47,500. One is $35,500. That's the amount we're getting back, and then we're paying 48,000, 36,000. So it's all of those plus the actual cost of the new trucks without subtracting the revenue that we'll get back in.
Okay, so that 251 doesn't include the revenue we're getting back for the vehicles. Is that correct?
Correct. And then we also have $1,700, which is the stormwater fund portion of the surveillance system that we're proposing. And then we have $2,250 proposed for a scanner, a map scanner.
So the biggest part then are those three vehicles. What were those numbers again that we're getting back?
They're both at like 47.5, 47.5.
That we're getting back?
48.
So we're selling those vehicles for $47,500, two of those.
Okay.
And then one for $35,500.
Okay.
And the new vehicles are $48,000 and $36,000.
25. Just trying to feed his calculator.
The $251,000 ignores the revenue, though.
Okay, so what is that What would that 251 be with the revenue? We're getting
We're getting $131,000.
131?
Yeah, in those 3 trucks. So about 120.
Okay. So if we included that revenue coming back in, just so that we're clear where everything is, it's about 130,000, correct?
$121,450.
Okay.
That's what I showed. Sorry for the confusion.
No? Just wanted to make sure the numbers were adding up.
Any other questions on this so far? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we'll talk asset repair and replacement. In our current year budget, we have $310,000 being set aside for future asset repair and replacement. In the proposed budget, we have $346,157. So we're increasing our contribution to future investment in the assets. Based on our model, however, the model says that we should be setting aside $621,690 each year. So this is a kind of a question again of how much we feel like we want to be funding our future asset repair and replacement. In the current version of the budget, we have not proposed a utility rate increase in the stormwater fund. If we feel like we would like to fund more of this asset repair and replacement, then we would, that would result in a utility rate increase, which, we've proposed that in the water and sewer funds. But in this fund, we were able to make everything work without an increase. But then it's just a question of how much we want to fund the future asset repair and replacement. So, funding it at $346,000 is, more than we've ever done. So I kind of felt like we were making progress. But if you feel like you want to be more aggressive than that, then we can entertain that idea. Does anybody have an opinion about that?
I'd like to see all the utility rates before we make that decision,
Okay.
for me.
Okay.
I don't know how the other council members do.
Okay. That will be on a later slide. So.
Dave, do you figure we can get by with
Yeah, and
what we're doing right now?
I feel very comfortable about the 347 or 46 too. So,
We don't have any major issues you're aware of that's coming up with?
no. So, and I think that's, like Evan said, that's something that we've never even done before. So, I feel very comfortable with that. I think we'll have a better idea in the next couple years. Now, with that camera trailer and the capability it has, we're going to be able to TV a lot more of our storm drain lines. And with that said, so we'll be able to line some of our lines like sewer does too. Then maybe we address that then. But right now, I feel like that's a really good place to be at right now.
Okay. Next slide. So this just shows that our current stormwater rate for residential customers is $11.53 per month, and we're just proposing to keep it at that rate for the next fiscal year. Okay, so now we're on to solid waste. Same idea with market and merit adjustments. We have the $11,722, and then the administrative fee to the general fund is up to $122,828. Dave, I don't know if you guys have something you want to share. I'm happy to talk about those
Which ones?
those fees if you want.
Yes.
We're not really proposing capital projects,
No.
so I don't know if you guys.
No.
Okay. So I did the estimates on these fees, just looking at historical trends and the information that we've received from some of our vendors. So we've had a couple of rate increases during the past 12 months from Weber County Transfer Station. And then we also try to incorporate new growth into the estimate. So the 9,856 is our estimated increase for that, which is, I think, fairly reasonable. It's not too substantial. So we've included that. Garbage collection contract. In that contract, there's an annual adjustment based on CPI, I believe is what it is. So I think this is a 3% increase, if I remember right, that we've budgeted into that, as well as the estimated new growth. And then recycling, actually, the rate that they've given us is 46% higher than what we had been paying. And so we've calculated that into this. It totals out at a $7,380 increase, which is not a whole lot compared to the others, just because the total that we pay for recycling is much smaller than what we pay for the others. It sounds like there are probably going to be other developments that come out, and so it'll probably even be less than that.
And council, you might say, well, 7,400 is not 46% of 45,000. That's because most of the recycling cost is the cost to pick it up and get it to the recycler. So that's what we pay Republic Services to pick up the recycling cans twice a month. So that's why that increase doesn't line up with that $45,000 number.
And then I think your fund balance is the same thing with the truck. Is that what that is?
Yes, well, I think that might be the cans.
Oh.
Let me check that one. Yeah, I have that. Fund balance is going toward the garbage can purchase.
Okay. Because his truck actually went quite a bit down, so we had him in a Duramax because we were using his truck for snow plowing, but with the fleet finally getting that other one as part of the rotation, we're gonna move that one as the snowplow truck and then just take him down to a 1,500. So we'll sell this next one for 47,000. We'll actually only have to pay 35 for the next one. So
Okay, no, I did put 47,500 as sale of assets.
okay.
And then that offsets the capital equipment purchase.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
Our fund balance in this fund is quite low when you compare it to other funds, but we really don't have a lot of infrastructure with the solid waste fund, so we don't worry about it being a problem that it's as low as it is. So, I mean, some people might argue that it's too high, I don't know, but I think it's good for us to have some money sitting in there that's available. I guess if we were to have a big windstorm again, then it's nice
Have to buy a lot of garbage cans.
to be able to pay for the help that we'll need, so.
Yeah.
So last year, if I remember right, last year we did change some of the recycling on getting an extra can and stuff. Didn't we change some of that last year?
So
That's what's in my head, and I was just wondering it's been a year, how has the input been from the residents? I mean, has it been fine with it? Have they, we haven't seen much. I haven't heard really anything, so I'm assuming it was all right.
Yeah, we didn't hear any pushback too much because we did charge for the second recycling, right?
So it seems like we did.
I think we
Where
raised it
before-
from $2 something up to $5 per
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
There it is, right there.
Thank you. So, and we don't get any pushback as far as even the second garbage can. I mean,
Okay.
every once in a while they'll say, that we've lowered people in the house and they'll want it to be picked up because it is quite a bit. It's $19, but we don't get a lot of pushback of where it's at. Yeah.
So again, with this fund, we were able to make the numbers work without proposing a rate increase. And so we don't really have an asset repair and replacement part of this fund. So we felt like we could continue providing the service at the current rates. So, any questions there?
They're getting better all the time.
Well, I think the next slide is all of the rates, is that right? So here's the table that shows all of the utility rates, and I have a paper copy here for everyone. Pass those around.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for Dave. Here you go, Dave.
Are there any extras?
Got one.
Yeah, right here.
Annette would like one. The packet would like one. So these are the rates that we have in the current versions of the budget. You'll notice that the water rate shown here is actually higher than the water rate that we talked about at the last meeting. Since that meeting, we had made some other adjustments to the administrative fees that the utility funds pay to the general fund. And so we had to adjust the water rates to account for that. So the total proposed increase is $2.50, and that's made up of increases in the water fund and the sewer fund. The sewer rate is divided into two rates, the Central Weber rate and then the city's sewer rate. The rate that we have listed there for Central Weber actually more than covers the fees that we pay to Central Weber. But the increase, the 45 cents, is calculated based on the estimated increase that we're going to be paying them next fiscal year. The sewer, and then the city's sewer rate is an part operational and part for asset repair and replacement. And as we said, the storm, trash, and then also transportation are proposed to remain the same as they have been. I believe last year the utility rate increase was about $5.
70 or something like that.
So this increase is much smaller than the previous year, which I think is positive. But we're open to hear your thoughts.
Back to the Central Weber. So we're currently covering our costs to Central Weber, and you expect that to go up in July? Or next year?
So they increase their costs.
They're on calendar year.
They're on a
Every
calendar, so it'll be
January.
in January.
So we know what we're gonna pay through the end of December, but
Right.
we're guessing what they're gonna charge us starting in January.
But they've been pretty consistent.
Yeah,
Bill. I think the last 4 years it's been the exact same increase.
it's like a 3 or 4% increase.
We knew someone who sat on the board down there, we could probably ask them.
I thought it was 2%
Well,
is what they were gonna increase. It's either 2 or 3.
North Ogden always gets a larger percent because it's partly based on property values.
Yeah, it's based on property values and based on population, and our property values are higher than somebody out in the countryside.
Yeah,
So we get nailed a little bit more, so that's true. But the overall has been pretty consistent for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
right.
So
It's gone up every year, the same amount.
Is there a way
And I
for...
approved it.
You're fired.
One voice out of about 12 or 13.
Is there a way for that increase to be delayed until January?
There is. I mean, the city, we can change our rates at any point during the fiscal year. So these numbers are estimated just looking at total fiscal year numbers, but if you'd like, we could look at it on a 6-month basis and propose something.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering is, should we be collecting that additional 45 cents for 6 months of the year, that increase isn't applied to the city?
But is it averaged back?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the whole fiscal year from July all the way to the next June.
Okay.
So our number is based on the total cost that we'll pay Central Weber for the full fiscal year. And we know for sure what half of the year is gonna be.
Right.
So if we feel like we don't wanna increase the rates until we know for sure, I think it'll still require a rate increase, cause the old rate is based on a half a year
Sure.
of lesser amounts. So I think it would still have some increase, but it just wouldn't account for the increase that begins in January.
Is that kind of an accounting nightmare to do that?
No, it wouldn't be hard to calculate it. It would just be, would increase the rates July 1st and then would increase them again January 1st.
But I mean, if we waited till January, aren't we looking at a 90-cent increase at that point?
Well, I
Pretty
think,
close.
I think you'd have a lesser increase this time and then a bigger one in January. I don't know exactly what those numbers would be, but we can run them, we can look at it.
What does risk council think?
Then we're raising rates twice a year.
I think it seems to be I think it seems to be more logical just to have it be one consistent.
I feel like in the end, the residents would pay about the same, because at the end of the year, we still need to generate the same amount of revenue. So whether they pay some of it earlier versus later, sorry.
They're probably close to 25 cents one way or another.
Sure.
I feel if we're raising rates, just do it once. I don't wanna do it 2 times a year.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay, that answers my question. You just know that somebody's gonna ask the question, raising it now for next year's dollars. Just wanna make sure that we know why we're doing it.
Sure. And part of the reasoning is that we're just on different fiscal years.
Right.
And that,
Seems weird.
but
yeah.
on a side note, we may not be here, so it'd be Blake and 4 new people that get to raise the rates.
There you go. Let's kick that can down the road.
So how do you feel about the amounts we have for asset repair and replacement? 46 cents in the water fund and 28 cents in the sewer fund. Any comments about those?
It seemed like when we went through those particular budgets, that it kind of fit okay. And according to Dave, it pretty well fit.
Yeah.
The water lines and the sewer lines and those kind of things that we raised it.
The increase you showed earlier in the asset repair and replace is calculated off this 46 cents, correct?
Yes.
The higher number that was on our previous slide?
Well, the sewer fund is 28 cents. Is that not the number that was on the previous slide?
Well, I'm just thinking about the total dollars. It was 300,000 to a higher 300 and some thousand.
I think 1.28 was right.
346.
And the 46 was right.
But that was in storm drain.
So,
That was
yeah.
in storm.
So
Yeah.
it generates the 346,157. It's not just generated by that 46, because from previous years, we've already got a part of the rate that's going toward asset repair and replacement. But that number gets it up to 346.
And for you, Phil, that with last week not being here, that 46 and the 28, they reflect a lot of that model that we started with Lynn.
Mm-hmm. Several years ago.
So the other part is, you know, like he said, it's already been covered in our depreciation. Those two are kind of above and beyond,
Okay.
to kind of reflect that model.
I tried to call in, but there wasn't good reception at the beach.
When we made that rate adjustment, it was only based on like 50% of what Lynn was recommending, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a part of me that wonders if, I mean, even though I know Dave is, do we still need to fund that a little bit more just to make sure we're catching up? I would prefer,
That's the question.
I'm kind of I would rather be prepared for a rainy day kind of a guy.
Yeah, that's the question to you guys. I mean, it's a matter of what we want to do as far as, I feel like we've, the last 5 years, the direction that we're going in those both of those funds, the sewer and the water, I couldn't ask for more. So I feel like that's really good. I feel like we're very comfortable with that, where that is. But, I mean, if you guys feel like there needs to be more done, or if you guys are hearing other than what I'm seeing, you know, if you're feeling like more stuff needs to be done as far as infrastructure goes, that's kind of where we need to adjust it, but.
And we're doing some every year
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the last 5 years,
already, so
we've done a lot, so.
I think we're pretty safe.
In the previous 2 years, we've had pretty healthy increases on utilities. It was 5 something last year, and wasn't it just right around 4 the year before that, John?
That sounds
It's
right.
3, high 3s or low 4s, something like that.
But were we to have something,
Playing catch up, because there hasn't been this repair and replace savings that for previous. So we're playing a big game of catch up for many years.
but were we to have something pretty serious, are we still okay?
We're $2 million, okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I feel like, I mean, I can't think of anything that catastrophically, like, that $2 million wouldn't cover. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess an earthquake
But at that point, I think we're gonna be looking for
for FEMA help.
FEMA relief. Yeah, I mean, being
Yeah, we had an earthquake and messed up a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
We go to FEMA for that one.
yeah.
We just learned about that today and yesterday.
Right,
And
check
tomorrow.
in 90
And
days
tomorrow.
From when?
from when the close.
For
when
final
approval.
You get your last one 2 years later.
So yeah, but like I really do feel comfortable that anything that would happen or could happen, that $2 million would cover us.
Yeah, catastrophic would be covered from outside funds from the city. Then the city, I should say, because
down the road.
when you meet the benchmark with FEMA, then they pick up 75%.
And we have our benchmark?
The 25, depending on what that.
Benchmark is.
what
The
that
benchmark would be depending on how much damage.
Oh, so that's,
I mean,
it's
if there's
based
a
on the
big
damage, not
earthquake
how
and we
much
bust
is.
up a lot of-
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
So the model is designed to capture as many assets as possible in the fund, and then it estimates the useful life of each piece of asset, and then calculates, in order for you to replace this asset at the end of its useful life, you should be setting aside this much money for this pipe segment and this much for this pipe segment. So it's pretty detailed. So the model does say that we should fund it at a higher rate, but we've always kind of felt like funding it completely would just be too much of a burden on current residents. And so we've kind of tried to strike a balance between partially funding it, but not fully funding it.
I hope there's an earthquake, so FEMA will cover it.
I hope there's
And like, to be honest with you, my biggest problem with funding completely fully is that you're making the citizens here right now pay for futures infrastructure.
Might,
you know
it
what I
might
mean?
not happen.
Or something that might not even happen, you know what I mean? So,
Okay.
Now, did they put the model on it based on a 10-year lifespan?
No,
It depended on the asset.
yeah, it varied by the asset. But there are a lot of assumptions built into the model that may or may not, that actually absolutely probably won't be accurate, right? Because we're never gonna be exactly right. So we just do our best to guess what we think the useful life of the assets will be. We guess what we think the price of, the price per foot would be to install or to replace.
and then comes with that, we make sure that we're inspecting and doing those things that they're put in properly, so that they can get their full useful life out of them too, so.
For those that weren't on the council when Lynn did that model, when he finished that model, and we looked at the assets that we currently have and their age, if we had been covering repair and replacement and depreciation fully for, decades, we would have about $27 million set aside for asset repair and replacement, and we didn't have anything. So, and when we talked about starting now and moving forward, because we're never gonna catch that up. And so, without, increasing things to, $20 a month to try to pull in huge asset repair and replacement dollars.
Okay.
John, were you gonna say something?
Well, I'm just gonna, one of the funds we talked about, the storm fund, that's getting those new trucks and things that are a use of fund balance. That's one of those things that we've consistently kind of repaired last year what had gone bad for the previous 20 years. And so it's not like we haven't been doing a repair and replacement. We just haven't been setting an additional amount aside. And so it's I don't want to call it a guessing game. It's a financial planning tool, but it's never going to be 100% right. And so far, the city's been around for 80 plus years, and we haven't gone under on things like that. And we're currently not bonding for our utilities. And so I think you can be fairly conservative on rate increases unless we see something as we've been increasing our inspections and stuff that we know something's going to fail severely in the near future.
One of the nice things also is the sewer lining. Our guys have done a tremendous job of cleaning out the sewers and making sure they're all clean and everything. And so when the sewer lining company came, they said, wow, we won't need to spend as much time on yours. We can do more for the money that you budgeted. And we're going through the city now replacing all those, or putting liners in there to extend the life 75 to 100 years. And so that's a big boon to us.
Great.
Any more comments on utility rates? I do have a copy of other cities' utility rates, just kind of for your information if you want to see what they look like compared to ours. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the general fund. Let's see. Pass those around to you. So a couple meetings ago, we reviewed the general fund and the budget proposals related to the general fund. We're just passing around a copy of the revised general fund proposed budget. Just make sure you get one of those.
cataract surgery, I can read these now.
Oh, good.
Cadillac, sir?
Yeah. So if you look at, there's a column that says proposed budget 1 and proposed budget 2 right next to it. So proposed budget 1 is the general fund budget that was discussed at our budget retreat a few weeks ago. And then proposed budget 2 is our current version where we've made adjustments and brought the general fund budget into balance. So, and then the final column shows the dollar amount change by line item that we did in order to get it to balance.
So that's 20,000 less?
That's 20,000 more.
More, okay.
20,000 more in revenue on utility revenue tax. You'll also notice that we increased the estimate on building permit revenues, but on that one, we had a similar increase to the transfer to capital projects. So we expect that building permit revenues will come in around the 411,000, but we didn't want to commit our expenditures to that money just in case it doesn't. So the 73,500 is budgeted to be transferred into the capital projects fund for future capital projects, assuming that it comes in. I think we ran out of, oh wait, is this
Ned's
one?
got one.
You got one.
Actually, I do have 2 here. Do you want me one? I need one.
Somebody take it. Looks like we're good.
I'll take one.
So if you look up here at the slide, this is the list of general fund proposals that we went over at the budget retreat. And so I'm putting this back up to show you what we've changed. The market and merit wage adjustments is now at 261,341. That one did go up based on the guidance we received from the council on market and merit adjustments. We eliminated the 401k, additional 3% match. We kind of went back and forth about how to make the general fund budget balance, and it was sort of difficult to figure out how to do it. But in the end, we took that one out in favor of keeping these 2 part-time positions. In the original budget, we had proposed a full-time code enforcement and resource officer position and a full-time events coordinator position. So both of those positions have been reduced to part-time, 20-hour-a-week positions. And then the part-time parks position to full-time is the same as it was in the previous proposal. And the other items at the bottom, those 2 are the same. We eliminated the $60,000 zoning ordinance rewrite. So those are the major adjustments that we made in order to get the general fund to come into balance. The reallocation of administrative costs that we've talked about was also part of the solution to making it work. Another item we'll mention, line 1038-900. It's called beginning balance to be appropriated. We put $1 million of beginning balance that would be transferred into the capital projects fund. And we put that there. The capital projects fund is sort of the way we keep fund balance for the general fund. The general fund has its own fund balance, but we transfer money into the capital projects fund to do capital projects. The fund balance in the general fund is limited by state law as to how much we can keep in there. And we often don't know exactly at the end of the fiscal year what our allowable limit is going to be. And so we are proposing to budget fund balance to be transferred into capital projects, which will allow us to make that transfer after the fiscal year is over, as needed. So that's what we've got proposed in there that was not in the original proposal. We've also shuffled some items from the administration department to the non-departmental, just because it made more sense that some of the expenses apply to all of the departments.
So, council, just for clarification, that $1 million is not a transfer that will for sure happen. It's just there to capture whatever amount we would exceed the 25% allowable by the state. And, you know, it could be done in July or August of the following year. The reason that came up as a concern was this past fiscal year, so last July, we ended up coming under budget on expenses by about $400,000 and over budget on revenues by about $200,000. And we ended up being about $200,000, something like that, from that 25% limit. And if you go over that, then you get a ding on your auditor report from the state, and it just puts an extra radar on the city. So this type of a thing would have allowed us, if we'd gone over, to transfer that money as part of the budget process, because we had budgeted for the transfer and could do it, if that makes sense. So it's more of a, so there's a revenue and an expense that kind of offset each other. So it's really a net zero, but it just allows us to move the money between those two accounts.
One of the changes that we also made was the general fund's contribution to the aquatic center fund. And we were able to reduce that by $16,000. And that's based on some rate adjustments in the aquatic center fund. So Tiffany and her employees have done some analysis on rates at the pool, and she provided a staff report as part of this. So I'd like to talk about the aquatic center fund as well, if you're ready to do that. Are you comfortable moving on to that, or do you have any more questions about the general fund? The aquatic center fund budget is on the back page. So I guess it's you, Tiffany.
Sure. So the last time rates were adjusted at the Aquatic Center was 2012, and not as a side effect, but kind of as a side effect of the wage adjustments that we made for the last seasonal year. We think that an adjustment to rates is requisite. Do we have this on a slide?
John, can you pull up the fee schedule?
Yeah.
So in that staff report, we would recommend adjusting all of the rates for daily admissions by 50 cents. That will put us at the top for facilities around the area, which isn't unusual. We were also at the top in 2012 when we made adjustments, and we find that we usually are the leaders, whether it's for making wage adjustments or setting prices. What our facilities do, a lot of facilities will follow. So we don't feel like that's too out of line there. We would also recommend, so with the adjustments to the rates, the admission rates, we would like to see that go in effect for this pool year. The aquatic center season spans the fiscal year, so we'd like to make that adjustment now to go into effect when we open in May. And then we would like to look at adjustments to season passes and facility rentals and swimming lessons to go into effect October 1st, which is basically the beginning of the next pool season. Because we've already started selling a lot of those items, we don't feel that it's smart to split that in the middle of the pool season. So they are all there. The only ones we did not adjust are 3 and unders are free. and the 2 for the price of 1 is obviously adjusted with the rate change on the single admission. Everything else is a solid 50-cent increase across the board.
So the adjustments to season passes that item will come back later,
Yes.
right?
That'll be the 2020 season.
Yes. So we start sale of season passes and things October. So September we finish with Labor Day, we close everything out, and then we gear up again and start selling season passes and things for the upcoming summer. And that's why we don't want to do that in the middle. We've been selling passes and things for this season, summer season, since October.
We aren't exactly sure how this will affect the revenues, but we estimated about $16,000. Could be more or less, then it could be a cold summer or a hot summer, we don't.
Let me control the weather.
We don't never
I'll
know
tell
about
you.
the weather, so we're doing our best to estimate what the revenues will be.
Just leave the pool open, it'll fill by itself this year.
Any questions on the aquatic center?
Seems reasonable.
Oh, it does.
How were you feeling about that? Well, I guess it was back before, but I know you were kind of hoping to get a full-time person on that.
You know, that's actually pretty disappointing. To be honest, I'm concerned about being able to fill a part-time position to be an events coordinator.
Oh, really?
Just with what we've seen with our part-time parks employees. And I'm concerned about the experience and the education that we'd like to have for this person, being able to get that with a part-time position.
Okay.
Or could we delay it until January for the full?
I think you could get a full-time person, yes, for the same cost for that year. It would just be the next year that you would have to figure out how to fund that.
So that's something council you could consider.
So if you did a half year at full time, it would go up from 28,000 to roughly 46,000. Because there's benefits and medical and stuff that gets added on to the salary when you go to a full time position.
It would go up to 46?
For 6 months of a full time person.
Oh, okay, got it.
Could the budget handle that or not?
But you guys took away the 401k,
We did.
which is a lot of money, but I felt was deserved of the employees.
Yes.
It's either one or the other is what
I
we
know.
come up with.
I know.
So we had to do one or the other, and so, that's something, the market rate was increased this year because we were way behind as far as the rest of the cities are concerned, as far as our employees are concerned. But the next year, there won't be that kind of adjustment, and that's when we could probably look at, whether that 401k for another year.
We just couldn't find a way to do it all.
I know.
I mean,
That says a lot about you guys, though. Says a lot about the employees of the city.
And council understand that, I mean, what we've essentially come to you is with a recommendation, and I've tried to make it clear to all the department heads that, I mean, they can voice their own opinion on any of these items, because I think this is a team recommendation. What's before you is kind of what Evan and I pounded out, trying to just get the budget to balance. And so I think, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why the city council can't use fund balance to fund some of it. It's just typically we don't use fund balance for operations. A good example is at the very beginning of this process, we told all the department heads we needed to not increase our budget this year as best we could. And that they came in actually on operations. So if you take out all the employee related costs, salaries, benefits, and things like that, the budget for everything else actually went down by $17,000, which isn't a lot of money, but they didn't increase. They didn't ask for new things. They, or if they did ask for new things, it's because they took something else out that they said, well, maybe we can get by without it this year. So I think the department heads have done a really good job. But it is a tight budget, partially because of these larger employee-related proposals.
The events coordinator, John, Evan, if we went back to full-time on that, what would the cost be?
It was like 80-something thousand,
It was 82, wasn't it?
82.
That sounds about right.
Maybe it wasn't that high, but
It was in the 80s, I remember that.
I'll pull it up. We have a few earlier versions of the budget document.
It was 80-something, including benefits.
mhm. I think if possible, it needs to happen because of what we have planned for the app. We need a full-time employee to handle it all.
Well, restoring the 3% match and restoring the events coordinator to full-time is roughly, hang on a second. Let me subtract that number out. Would be an additional budget of $136,317 roughly. And I just guessed on the full-time events coordinator at 83,000. So I think the question, a question is that something we want to dip into fund balance for the 1 year? I mean, it's just a question.
My recommendation's no. Because if you're dipping into fund balance for operations, and you're gonna have to do it next year too, and then the year after that, because it's an ongoing thing, it's not a one-time deal.
Yeah, it could be.
I agree with that. That's sort of our general rule, but it's not, it can be an option if it
Yeah, just ask the question.
But that's just me. I mean, I'm only one person.
At our budget retreat, we discussed the option of truth in taxation and adjusting our property tax rate. That is also an option. I don't know if it's a popular one, but it's an option.
Council, just the other thing that has changed since last meeting is we are showing currently that 73,500 being transferred to the capital improvement fund. So that is, that was kind of based on the idea that if the building department or the building market tanks next year, we could lose half that revenue. We wouldn't get 411, we'd get 250 or whatever, but right now that's being shown as a transfer to capital improvement fund. So in reality, if you increase the money, you'd be decreasing that transfer until you hit that 73,000, and then you'd be using fund balance.
Would we be better able to address particular your event coordinator in January as a budget amendment? Would that work?
January would be great. We can wait until January if that's an option.
So in January, I suppose we would have a better feel for how things are going as far as sales tax revenues and building revenues. So I guess we could have more or less confidence depending on how the economy is, or would at least have better information to make a decision.
And the demand would be greater on that person after January than it would be between now and then. Is that correct?
Well, we would still have, we probably have more events next year than this year, if that's what, yeah.
I'm trying to get your opinion, not tell you what to do.
Oh, yes.
I value your opinion.
Thank you.
And,
It's his birthday though.
Yeah.
That's true.
and council, part of the hesitation on, and it's not a real hesitation on building permits, it's just they're so off and you don't know when they're coming in. Apparently we received 10 today. So, you know, it's hard to know when things are gonna come in. Typically, if you look at the curve, most of our a good majority of our permits come in these next 3 months before the end of the fiscal year. So it's always really hard to know what the builder's gonna do until they start doing it. And it's always at the tail end of the fiscal year. So it's just, it's, the council is in charge of the budget and the revenues, the expenditures, and so it's more about what you're comfortable with. Yeah.
Where are we year to date on building permits? Do you have that number by chance?
I don't have it.
I will pull it up. I got an email yesterday, I think.
Budgeted 337.5 last year.
For your benefit, Dave, I just got this message that says showers and thunderstorms changing over to snow this evening. So
Perfect. We're excited.
just thought I'd make your day.
You can still park on the road.
Yes, you can park on the road. Yeah, 'cause
So I'm showing 269,000 current year to date. I think that's through the end of March. I'm actually not sure if it's through February or March, but maybe John can validate it.
The number I have for total units, we have 114 residential units that are new residential, so that doesn't include remodels and things like that, or commercial spaces, whereas Evan's building permit number would include commercial. So
we're on track to be on budget for what we budgeted for revenues from building permits.
If it's a product and we're asked to provide a product, but we gotta do it with less money, then we're gonna provide a lesser product. Not by choice, so I think it's just a matter of whether we wanna keep providing the services that we want to provide and the community wants. So. But understand that if the revenue's not there, you either gotta increase the revenue or find somewhere to cut something on the product we provide.
We don't have to solve it tonight. We have some time.
Good.
But I feel good that at least it's balanced at the moment. So.
We can fix that.
Yes,
Well, I for one have thought a lot about what John was teaching us about the maintain the rate idea. Maybe everybody doesn't remember what the maintain the rate was? Everybody remembers?
well, and one thought, is when we left this meeting last time, the commitment was we'd come back to try and not force you to do a tax increase, right? I think that, there's some things that I think the council wants to do. We've talked about doing a new police station for a while, and I think it makes a lot of sense to, if you're looking at bonding for a police station, and in particular a GO bond, that's a property tax increase that's specifically tied to that project and the length of that funding required. And so if you don't increase taxes to cover operations, but you do a GO bond to cover a new police station, I think that's a it's a much better sell, and I even, from my perspective, than an increase in taxes to cover, other things. I think physical infrastructure is a good use of tax money, those kind of capital project type things. So, and just as an FYI, last year, in the last 3 months of the fiscal year, we got 69 residential units of the roughly 180. So we got a third of them in the last quarter of the year. So you just never know. We do have several large projects. The Village at Prominence Point and Cherry Springs Villas are going to be doing a lot of units, because they're townhomes, or the senior assisted or the senior fourplexes. They're doing a lot of units, right? So.
Hey, other questions for Evan, or
When was the last property tax increase?
2010?
2005.
Five.
And we currently collect right about 1.2 million in property tax, or that's what we're projecting this next year.
So we don't have another budget meeting scheduled until May 14th, which is when we're asking you to adopt the tentative budget. So I don't know if you're comfortable with that, or if you feel like you'd like to have more discussion before that time. When it comes to the tentative budget, it's not a final budget, so you can adopt a tentative budget and make changes subsequent to the adoption. The budget becomes final in June when you adopt the final budget. But then you can even change it after that if you want to, but we have to adopt a tentative and we have to adopt a final. So that's kind of our schedule. So are you comfortable if we come back to this on May 14th with the tentative, or do you feel like you need to have more discussion before that time?
We left some things open tonight. Do you need to get back together again and discuss those before we present the tentative budget to the public?
I think we should.
I think there's some open doors here that we need to close before we get to that date.
What would be, and I know nobody likes to talk taxes, but I just think that 2005, last time the city actually raised taxes. And then 2009 was the last time the city employees actually had a raise.
No.
Wasn't it 2009?
No.
No, they've had raises.
Or have they?
Or we have.
Well, I guess maybe 2009 is when they did the raise
2000.
study,
Might have been
Right.
The wage study.
the wage study.
Oh, the wage study.
So,
That's when they took it away. They took that
Later than
3%
that.
away from us in 2009. Maybe that's why you're.
And then when was the last wage study before this one?
When did we have that committee?
Yeah, it was like 2000.
you're talking with the
Late
like,
14,
Thane
early
Schaefer
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Neil Berube.
Neil Berube.
Thane Schaefer, that was,
I
'cause
thought-
I was on the council.
I thought
so-
somebody said 2009.
Mm-mm.
So that's when that
No, it was-
3%
I think it's
taken away.
14.
It was late 14 or
No,
early
it
15.
wasn't then. It was earlier than that. Let me grab it.
They're saying it was when the 401k was taken away. It was in 2009. Does that sound right? Maybe.
I just remember 2009 being a pivotal.
I think that's when raises stopped for a couple of years. Is that what you were thinking?
I don't know, my head is still swimming because, last year this time I was full-time employed and only doing this kind of minimally. So this year my head is swimming more than it was last year. All I remember is that I was surprised that the employees have been doing so much with relatively so little in compensation.
It actually was 2013.
It was 2013, what's 20,
But we didn't do anything with that study, nothing.
So in 2009 is when the raises went away for several years. I think 2013 was close to was when they got I think it was a 3% that year. We can get that information for you.
That was a downturn in the economy.
Yeah.
There was a
There was no-
increase. There was increases, but there was never based on the survey.
It's probably my misunderstanding.
Well, and just so you know, in between 2008 and 2009, the city lost about $1 million in revenue. And so we let people go, we cut raises, we dropped that 3%, and we've been growing since then. And I think, Evan, was it 2015 or 16 that we actually reached the same revenue that we had in 2008. So we've consistently been climbing back up to that level, and now we've exceeded a little bit. But I think the question is, and this is something for the council to look at, is when's the next downturn, right? We've had so many months of positives that we're kind of hedging, and I'm not, Evan and me and the department heads are not saying be conservative, be aggressive. We're just trying to give you the information and then let the council make a decision, because we don't want the world to go south and 24 months later you're mad at us because we didn't tell you, hey, don't forget to consider these other things to consider. So, but because of that, because of our conservative approach, I mean, right now we're going to have close to $2 million in fund balance that can be spent on emergency things, police station, so it's, there's not every city has 25% of their fund balance for the general fund sitting there. A lot of them operate on much less than that, and we're pretty lucky on the way that this council's budgeted in the past, and so you have a lot more flexibility than some of your other counterparts do.
John, just for discussion purposes, if we did a rate maintain on property taxes, what would that do to revenue?
Typically a rate maintain is about 3%. The state actually gives us the rate, if I remember right, Evan.
Yeah.
The council can either pick a rate, or we can say we want to maintain, and then they'll give us the expected rate. It's usually been around 3%. So, it would add about $40,000. But if we had been maintaining the rate since 2005, our current property tax rate we'd be bringing in about $1.8 million. So, because it compounds on itself, and every new unit is now paying that higher rate too. So it's kind of one of those, do you bump it every couple of years? Do you maintain it? Do you never increase it? It's just a policy decision. But it's not going to be a significant amount of money, but it helps when you maintain. If you do an actual increase in rate, then it's whatever you pick. If you pick 10%, then it's $120,000. If it just kind of is whatever number the council would pick. And if you do a go bond, that's specifically tied to an increase in tax rate. So, and that tax increase only stays as long as the bond is out. So if you did a 10-year bond, then as soon as the bond was over, the rate would drop back down that increased percentage to cover the bond payment. And there again, I'm not saying anyone's recommending bonding or tax increases. It's just these are the options that you have available.
And a go bond is voter approved, right?
Yes.
Whereas adjusting the rate is the truth in taxation process, where we have public hearings and we put notices in the newspaper, and then the council votes on it.
And the other bonds, there's several other bonding options available that are just council approval that are then subject to referendum. That's what happened with the bond for the Public Works facility. It was a council approved bond, not a voter issued or voter approved bond, until it went to referendum, and then it was a voter denied bond. So.
So we discussed the possibility that we need to get back together again, we need to put a date on this so that we can close the door on some of these.
It would be helpful to have a date, I guess.
It'd have to be the 7th.
The what? Okay, the 16th, which is next week. We could do one the 13th, or the 23rd we can't. The 30th, we could.
I think we need that much time.
The 30th
30th?
is the 5th Tuesday.
Yeah, I think so. I think you just want a couple of weeks.
Does that give you enough time, Evan?
Yes.
Everybody okay?
So what day?
April 30th. What time would we do that?
Is 6 o'clock normal time? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Evan, does that give you enough time?
It gives me time. I need some direction though, I think.
Is 6 o'clock the best time, or does it need to be 3 or 4?
I think 6 is okay for me.
We have our seasonal training, is that in this room? And
Oh, you do, at 5 o'clock that night.
What's wrong with May 1st?
May 1st is a Wednesday,
No,
There'll
that's
be
fine.
planning commission meeting that
That's
night.
yeah.
we,
And the 7th, we have a UTA open house here. Tiffany, could we move your training to the
70?
It was-
senior center?
that or maybe at the animal shelter. Maybe
You think
that
we
room
could hold it in that
upstairs.
room?
It depends, how many kids do you have coming
They
probably?
usually fill this,
50,
all these
70.
chairs.
I mean, it's a lot, but yes,
Can we move that meeting earlier than 6?
About the room downstairs?
we start at 5, so
We got
if we're done in an hour, then it's not a problem,
I think it's 90 minutes.
is it? Okay, we could look at the senior
But
center. Do you
can
want
we
me to
look
do
at the
that?
senior center?
What about the conference room downstairs?
Usually not done with their sports.
It's not
and
big
stuff.
enough for these guys.
Okay.
I'll check on the senior center for that night.
And maybe just for clarification as to what we need to be thinking about. I can't be here that night, I'm gonna be out of town. But whether we maintain the rate, that's what we need to be thinking
Well,
about,
options, maintain the rate, bump the rate, not do anything with the rate.
right?
Do we go full-time on the parks, and where do we find the money? Do we put the
Full-time.
401K back in, and where do we find the money?
Full-time in January on the other one, wouldn't we? The parks?
You'd still have to find a little more money.
Yeah.
It would be kind of nice to know how that, if we were to go a direction where we maintain the rate, how that would affect each homeowner. Is there any way to put together that kind of
Yeah, we can estimate it.
estimated numbers?
It all depends on their individual property values, but we can estimate based on an assumed
Okay.
property, average property value.
I can tell you the most recent information puts a typical $250,000 house is what the county usually uses as the measure, and they pay about $300 a year. And it could be plus or minus $5 or $10, but if 300's a nice round number, so that means if it's 3%, then it's $9 on every house a year. Or if it's 10%, then it's $30 on every house a year. So but as your house, if your house is worth twice that, then it would hit you twice as hard as that $250,000 house. So, but most houses are the average is around 300 at the 250,000 value range. And also understand that what the assessed value is different than the market value. So the assessor's playing with those numbers, and it's a formula.
Does the council have any strong feelings about any certain one or two, or do you have a priority order or something like that?
These things we left kind of open, we talked to Tiffany about going full-time in January. And that seemed to be okay. You can throw rocks if you want.
No, that would be fine.
Okay.
Resource officer, will you explain that again, Chief? It's not the school.
No, this is for like a community resource officer who can do law enforcement duties that don't require a sworn officer to do it. And they also can be stationed at the front desk for those, in 2018, we had over 1,000 people walk through our front doors for police service. But our officers are out in the field.
So they have to come in
Yes.
in order to.
So somebody there at the desk that can just simply answer a question or take a found property or, sign off on fix a ticket, a number of things. I mean, that we're not taking somebody out of the field for, something that typically takes a minute or two to handle and then back out in the field. He just turned a 2-minute project into a 20-minute project. That's what the resource officer would. And as they're at their desk doing their code enforcement stuff, then they can still interact and do that type of thing.
Well, if you want my opinion, I'm just gonna weigh in first. I think the citizens would be amazed at how well you as department leaders have gone through and reevaluated, willing to take a little bit of it in the shorts to try to make this work, but Mayor, I can't say 1, 2, or 3. I think all 3 of those issues are important. I would love to see you guys get the 401k adjustment. And if the chief of police says we need a code enforcement officer and a events coordinator, I'm in favor of trying to find a way to make it all work.
What about the zoning ordinance?
Yeah, the zoning ordinance to me is maybe a little less important, but those 3 are important to me.
I was just curious.
Only because we've worked through form-based code now I don't think we've had a complete resolve yet on form-based code, so I think that to me is, the citizens are not gonna take it, I don't think the citizens are gonna get less service because we don't have an ordinance written yet. But if we have less policemen in the city, in the city out, that makes a difference. And if we don't have anybody who's able to run and work with a coordinator, somebody's gonna have to do that. That to me impacts the parks. So to me, the top 3 are, and if you guys are asking me to push, I mean, to me, the 401k is not even negotiable. I think the employees deserve that. So, Mayor, that's how I feel.
Any other comments? We can finalize this for the meeting on the 30th, but any other comments tonight?
I'm with Blake, if we can find the money, if we can find a way to do it. I think we can hold off on the ordinance rewrite.
Well, I won't be here for the 30th. I'll be out of town, so that's my 2 cents tonight.
That's what it's worth then.
That's probably
You
what
leave-
it's always
you
worth.
leave it. That's worth it.
And I would not be opposed. I mean, nobody likes to talk T-word, but
TI.
there's reality, you know what I mean? There's a reality here, and we can't expect the city to suffer because we don't take a little minor increase after 14 years of not taking an increase. But then I'm the only person that's safe on the council this year, maybe.
Well, that shouldn't really matter though, should it?
No, I know, but it was you who leaned over to me and said, hey, if you do it.
Any other comments from the council tonight? These are things we need to digest. You got somewhat of a walking plan.
I do. Are we
So
settled
you
on?
can put an A and a B plan together and
Okay.
A, B, and a C.
Okay.
show us what the alternatives are and how we do it.
Okay, we can do that.
Rate maintain and
Definitely.
maybe 3 or 4 different rate increases,
Okay.
just for information's sake.
Yep.
It's not getting any cheaper to be able to run a household or a save if we don't have some kind of increase.
Yeah. Well, 14 years is a long time,
14 years is a long time.
very long time.
Any other council?
Did we settle on the 30th then? May 30th? At 6?
Right.
Not May 30th.
Oh,
April 30th, sorry.
April 30th.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I meant. Thanks.
I figured that too, so we're okay. If there's no other discussion here, we'd open the meeting for public comment on the budget. It'd be nice, it's my birthday.
Julie Anderson, 940 East, 600 North. Oh, well, it's just, so I just had a suggestion. I was looking at the impact, the raising cost for getting into the swimming pool, and I would ask that we don't raise it for seniors and military and their families. That's just a suggestion that I would put forward there. Our seniors are on a fixed income. Every time you put an increase, we put an increase on their utilities, and now you put an increase. I don't know how often they use the swimming pool as senior citizens, but you know, every time we do that, we're increasing it. And for our military, it's just a nice way to say thank you for everything that you do. So that was really all I had at this point. That was two things that kind of struck me was it would be nice not to increase those particular fees.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to item 3, discussion on the age of tobacco sales. Presenter be Council Member Swanson.
Most of you, I'm sure, have heard what the city of Lehigh did here earlier in the year. I'm trying to find the date again that it happened. Essentially, what the city of Lehigh did is they changed the age for purchasing tobacco products and vaping products to the age of 21. And you can do that on a city level. The state legislature in this last legislature, last session, also passed a statewide that will increase to 21 over the next 2 years. So it goes to 20 in 2020 and then to 21 in 2021. The question that I wanted to raise was, do we as a city, and I had the question before the legislature passed their bill, do we as a city want to follow Lehigh and raise the tobacco purchasing age within our city to 21? With the new state law, we can't lower it beyond what the state has it. So next year it'll go to 20 for us regardless. And the year after that, it goes to 21 regardless. We could make it stiffer. We could say 24 or 35 or whatever. But we can't make it less stringent than what the state has with their preemptive clause in that bill. So the discussion is that something we feel is necessary? Is it something that is more of a message than anything else? Just for your information, on the state bill, let's see here, I'm trying to remember who this was. Changing the age for tobacco to 21 obtained wide support from tobacco companies and health organizations. 95% of smokers become addicted before the age of 21. A statement from Juul, J-U-U-L, it's an electronic cigarette company. Quote, tobacco 21 laws have been shown to dramatically reduce youth smoking rates, which is why we strongly support raising the minimum purchase age for all tobacco products, including vaping products like Juul, to 21. So that's been signed by the governor. That'll start taking effect next year. So the discussion today is, do we want to do something before that or just follow as the state goes along?
Mind if I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So the state law is going to apply to both possession and purchase.
Yes.
Does Lehigh's apply to both?
It does.
So if North Ogden's law is more strict than Utah's?
I was going to say, my understanding is Lehigh's law only applies to purchase.
Purchase?
Yeah.
Okay, I read the comment.
They'd have to go to Provo to purchase, and then they could
come
smoke.
back.
Yeah. But the state is moving their age.
So a resident could go to the next city, purchase,
Come back.
come back and possess.
Mhm.
Same with North Ogden. But we couldn't allow a visitor to come in and possess where they legally purchased and possessed in Pleasant View or Harrisburg or Ogden, if we were to follow mine.
if we were to fall in line, it would only be
Purchase.
Smith's, Lee's, 7-Eleven, Maverick would be the ones who enforce the age of purchase. Everything else would stay the same with your officers as far as possession.
So the state's law will be purchase and possess.
Yep.
It would almost be impossible to enforce, I think, without.
Well, that's why I mentioned it's more of a message than anything else. I think Lehigh, when they passed theirs, it was more of a message resolution or ordinance than anything else, especially in light of what the state did in this last session. But I wanted to just have that conversation. It's out there, it's in the public, it's a conversation that's being had nationwide to raise the tobacco age to 21. And but there are certainly, as the chief pointed out, and as Lehigh is understanding, there are limits when you can just go to the next, just cross the border, buy it, and bring it back. It makes it 100% a message ordinance than it is anything else.
Looks to me, as close proximity is to Ogden. Just need to drive down.
Harrisville,
Pleasant View.
Even closer.
4 or 5 blocks and then pick it up anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly.
if you could do a local ordinance that would restricted purchase and
Possession, right.
then we'll have enforcement all day long. You got people that come into work and shop and, you know, they're between 19 and 21.
So the state law is
Purchase and possession.
purchase and possession.
The state law, yeah.
So it only delay us 1 year type thing.
A couple of years, yeah. Next year to 20, following year to 21.
My opinion is follow the state. That's my opinion.
Sure.
And I don't smoke or vape or any of that stuff. I just,
And I think more what 7-Eleven and Maverick gonna say. I don't think Smith will really care, but maybe I'm wrong. But I know 7-Eleven sells a lot.
Yeah.
They may not be happy.
Sure they wouldn't be. I don't think a lot of the vendors are going to be, even with the state law.
Right, but if everyone's changed, I mean, if we change it preemptively above, I mean, like, go down
Right.
the street to this Shell or
Right, I see what you're
Texas or
saying, yeah.
whatever's down the street. It's revenue that they lose. I'm like Carl, I don't use any of it either, but. No. I like my money.
You're around smoke all the time. Come on.
He's bringing it all the time.
Gets it for free.
That's why we wear
Respirators.
respirators, we don't want to breathe that stuff.
Any other comments from the council?
It's a good, I like it though, I mean, I just think it'd be a nightmare. But I like to,
What the state's done, yeah.
Other comments?
Sure.
Okay.
Anything?
No, I think we should just go with what the
Just go with
state
the
says.
state.
Councilman Severin?
That created a quorum, so, right?
Mhm.
Well, thanks for the discussion.
Yeah, thanks for bringing
Okay.
that up.
It's just one of those little things that pop up every once in a while. We gotta, as a council, have a discussion about. So thanks.
Thank you. Open the meeting again for public
What's that?
comments. Any
All
public
right.
comments?
Now,
Further?
together and everybody be.
Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Okay, around the table, Evan, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay. Councilman Severin?
Nothing.
Councilman Stover?
Nope.
Councilman Walker? Councilman Turner?
thank you very much.
Dave? Tiffany?
I just need to double check on fee schedule for the aquatic center, so it will have to come back as an action item with consolidated fee schedule, but we need to start getting stuff ready to go for the season, so I just wanna make sure. My understanding is the council is for the proposed changes.
When were we gonna bring those back, do you remember?
I don't.
think
I would say we should do it at this meeting.
April 30th?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, because you need to get it up and mounted and
I do.
posted and, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So we need to have a motion tonight?
No,
Is that what you're saying?
we'll bring the ordinance back next
Okay.
meeting.
To
Stephanie, have we done anything for military? Or we had that discussion once before, didn't we?
The military does have a discount, so.
And seniors?
And seniors are discounted from the regular admission rate, which in this proposal, they would all be going up 50 cents. So seniors right now are $1 under the North Ogden resident rate, $1.50 under the outside resident rate. And then military are $2.50 under the North Ogden rate and $3 under the outside rate.
Okay. Thank you. Chief?
Nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Swanson?
Just one quick thing for Dave. Dave, when we are expanding Oakland Park detention,
Yes.
where will that water go in the meantime? Any water that's coming in while we're working on that? Because we're gonna go down and up, right?
Yeah. Well, we're not, the development hasn't even came yet, so it wouldn't affect it probably whatsoever, but we'd make sure that we did it in a dry season.
Would you let us know when you have that worked out?
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
it's sure to be a question that somebody brings up.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Where's that water gonna go? And we'd like to be able to answer that. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks again, everyone, for attendance.
Mayor. One,
Just my left eye, I can't do that.
just
You're hiding behind a computer, I can't see that.
Just one reminder about the Arts Guild Open House on the 18th. The state facilitators are going to come out and essentially work with the group to see what the plan for, or what the recommendation is going to be for the Arts Guild. And then they're going to essentially kind of make a recommendation to us for what it should look like, what are the type of people we want on that group, and the type of activities they should focus on. That'll obviously tweak as the group is created and put in place, but that's, just put it on your calendar and invite your friends, families, anybody who wants to be involved should come and participate in that meeting.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Okay, council, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved. And seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.